All right, everyone, I believe I am now live. However, let me really quickly do a thing over here. Because, of course, it doesn't always sync up with YouTube. Yeah. Yeah. All right, I am indeed live. Excellent. I'm going to drag this over here really quick. I'm just fiddling with things at the moment, so don't worry, I haven't completely lost my mind or anything like that. Oh, God, it keeps resizing. Okay, that's better. Anyway, slow mode is on at the moment. You know, unlike Joe Biden, as it's been pointed out there, I actually need slow mode because otherwise things will definitely get overrun. My scheduling thing was a little bit off. I do apologize for that, but I'm in Amsterdam, so like, and daylight savings just ended or begun or something like that. Something that should be abolished. It should be made unconstitutional to have daylight savings time. Anyway, this is the Saturday show. Now, keep in mind, Super Chats are open. You can send Super Chats if you'd like to donate. I may read some of those comments out or other random comments as well. Now, but this isn't the Super Chat Q&A show. That's tomorrow on Sunday. I'm going to try to be doing the 2 Super Chats every week. The Saturday show, which is just generally a news wrap-up. I'm ranting for an hour or so, and then the Q&A. CJ, good afternoon for you, I think. Yeah, it's early afternoon. I don't even exactly, half the time I don't know what day it is because I don't really have a schedule other than the self-imposed schedule of when I wake up, I immediately caffeinate, and then I launch right into work. By the way, when work and play are the same thing, it's an excellent time. Anyway, we have to discuss all sorts of crazy stuff. But first, I figure we should probably cover our old friend Phil Scott. He is the governor of Vermont. And the Super Chat's rolling in. Mo is better than fish. I don't know. Never heard of him. Let the music play, donating as well, and thank you very much. I'm going to read through actually some tweets on the actual tweet from Breitbart. Now, keep in mind, disclaimer here, I'm not a fan of Breitbart. Breitbart is right-wing mollusk media, missing link media, and that's perfectly fine, but they are technically competitors of the independent commentator community. Cheers for the constant content by Don Browning. Thank you very much. So I'm going to read through some of these. Actually, this is about Phil Scott. Now, here's the Breitbart post. I'll just read that verbatim. Social media backlash goes viral after Vermont's Governor Phil Scott announces that those who identify as Black, Indigenous, or a person of color can now sign up to receive the coronavirus vaccine. Oh, trust me, it has. I heard about this, like my mom had actually emailed me about it separately. So in Vermont, it's apparently as well a thing. Phil Scott right here, and I made a video on this the other day, is virtue signaling. He's hoping to get the 50 Black votes that are in the state. He will be let down by his efforts, and he's doing this. This is a grift. This is Phil Scott being Phil Scott. He's a rich dude. He's a politician. He's very good at what he does, which is to manipulate other people, and that's basically what this is about. This isn't even about being woke. Most of the time when we see like a corporation or a politician or whatever, they're trying to be woke. The corporation's run by mainly white people. The politician is usually white and older. They're not woke. They have their own racial beliefs. They have their own bigotries and so forth. They're doing it because they know that it'll get them votes and it'll get them donations. And that's really what it's about. And this is what this is about too. The idea of BIPOC even existing, number one, is a left-wing Marxist canard. The idea that Phil Scott gives a fuck about a few thousand people in the state of Vermont that happen not to be white Anglo-Saxons is also insane. He's doing this to grift. He's doing this to grandstand, to virtue signal, to look good to the constituents that he has, which are largely left-wing white individuals. Middle and upper middle class, white Vermonters, trust fund babies and so forth from the Champlain Valley. That's his constituency. He doesn't care about working class Rutlanders. He doesn't care about some rural individual up in the Northeast Kingdom with their 10 acres of inhospitable forest hilltop. He doesn't care about those people because there aren't enough of them to counterbalance all the hippies that are in Burlington or all of the Middlebury college kids and stuff like that. So he's pandering. The funny thing is, as a Republican, he should know better than to think that he's going to get, I don't know, 20 or 30% at most of the non-white vote in Vermont, and it's a minuscule proportion. White people are the vast majority of the state. Vermont's like what? 96% white, 97%? It's insane. And most of the people that'll praise him for this, they're not even going to be people who happen to be indigenous, which is anyone born in a region for multiple generations, which means most white individuals as well in the United States. By the way, nobody's going to praise him other than white college liberals, but they were already on board with him. I mean, they're not going to rock the boat. They're like, oh, well, Phil Scott, he didn't want to raise taxes, so that's problematic, but he passed Bloomberg-style Minter gun control. That's a good thing, right? He's an idiot. People encouraging me to run for governor. I teased that out as a joke years ago. I've actually thought about it more seriously, but the thing is, like, Jesus Christ, the amount of effort involved for the tiny payoff of having to deal with a supermajority of Democrats in the House and Senate, it's not really meaningful. There's no purpose to it. The Democrats have a supermajority in the Congress of Vermont, and so it wouldn't matter who the governor is. It's just a rubber stamp for Congress, basically. Anyway, we're going to be talking about some responses here. I actually responded to this particular tweet as well myself. Anyway, we've got, gee, a liberal state injecting race into everything, including medicine. Color me shocked. Yeah, see, it doesn't shock me because we've had that problem in our state for years, actually, since I was a little kid. It's funny because actually, did you see this? Phil Scott ruled out the idea. This is a little bit of an aside. He ruled out the idea of giving vaccinations to students like at UVM and Castleton mainly from other states. Like that won't be covered, but racially discriminatory vaccines will be available to people in the state, again, according to their skin color. And the funny thing is, Vermonters cry foul about the former. Oh my God, how can Phil Scott deny college kids vaccinations? Some kid from Washington State or Texas is saying they can get vaccinated in their home states. Why would he deny it to them? They have a huge problem with it, but they don't have any problem whatsoever with the idea of literally a racial designation for who can get vaccinated. It's interesting to me, the priorities of my fellow Vermonters, but the thing is, most of them are like, they're from other places. There are a huge number of people in Vermont that aren't from Vermont. A lot of Vermonters, when they graduate from college, they go to UVM, Castleton, whatever. They get a great education, Linden State. They're highly in demand. They go to the Dakotas to work on in a gas field. They go to Texas to work on an oil rig or something. They go and they make their fortune, and then they come back to Vermont or New Hampshire or something. When they're like 60, they retire early. And it's like Vermont is basically people under 18 and people over 60. And that's something that tourists don't understand either. They think that it's all like, apple trees and maple syrup and stuff like that. It's a real rugged lifestyle for the average Vermonter. Back Street is not the same as Main Street in our state. People need to understand that. By the way, we don't even have 1,000 people watching, but we're probably easily matching what Beijing Biden gets on his live streams. And we're not even getting ratioed. Keep that in mind. So the population's most impacted. Horror. Yeah, this is funny. People like leftists will weigh in. They'll talk about the disproportionate impact on especially Black communities with regards to coronavirus. This is because urban communities, which overlap with being less white, tend to be more obese. That's really what it's about. That's the only reason. You're in a community where you're using a car, you're not walking around, there might be high crime or whatever, you're commuting several miles, you're not walking to work probably, and obesity is higher. And this is linked with a higher rate of cardiovascular problems, respiratory problems, and so forth. That's the only explanation for it. And yet people will say, well, they're trying to kill Black people. We need to give vaccines to BIPOC before we do the white people because, reasons. So let me get this straight. The governor of, and I'm not using usernames because I don't want to, anyone to get raided or anything. The governor of Vermont now suggests that people should register for the vaccine by race. I guess that makes Vermont Gov a racist state. Yes. Yeah, it is. The funny part is it's racist in both directions. It's the most woke. You have a huge amount of leftist woke bullshit in the state, but also, and this was something that was from, I think, 2017, if I remember correctly. Vermonters per capita have the most toxic comments online of any people in the United States. Now, by toxic, they mean basically like we're not woke. There is no political correctness. I've talked to leftists. Trust me, I can verify this personally as an anecdote. Leftists are the most likely to be greasy, scummy, hateful people of all people in the world, and they tend to be super majority white. And that's just the way that it is. We need to stick together. Boycott MLB, Major League Baseball. Everyone needs to boycott to get the message. 74 million plus need to stick together. Complete boycott for the whole year. No letting up. This is interesting. This has to do with apparently baseball has gone woke too. Now, let's put this in perspective. As a person who never liked sports to begin with, baseball basically is about watching people hit a ball and eating like $10 hot dogs. And so I never really got into it, and I never really understood it. I also don't understand football or soccer or any of these other fucking stupid sports. I was never into that, and not because I wasn't capable of doing sports. It's just, what's the fucking point? But yeah, I guess there's a boycott going on. It won't do anything, ultimately, at the end of the day. Look, sports ratings are way down by like, what, 20, 30%, I think, year over year, and it's not affecting them. They'll just end up getting more subsidies from states and so forth. They'll just put more taxpayer money into their sports team, build another stadium, get even more woke. Racist, says another individual. Yeah, it is. But it's not, I mean, Phil Scott's not doing it because of race. I mean, he is a white male. He's a white, straight Christian male. He's doing it to get votes. He's doing the political thing. He's doing the politics thing. And that's really what it's about. Remove and charge now. Broke his oath. Americans, read the Constitution. Stop idolizing sports and fake Hollywood. Well, I mean, you can't remove him from office for doing something stupid like this because he's not the only one designing it. This was designed essentially in part by the medical community. The problem is it's subsidized and co-opted by the state. That's really, really the problem. Sue his ass if you live in that state. Good idea. However, you have to be an aggrieved party in order to have legal standing. The problem is that Phil Scott used a weasel word here. Did anyone catch this? If you identify as black, indigenous, and so forth, if you identify as it, that's a little bit different than if you are black, if you are indigenous, because it's completely open to interpretation. And I guarantee that the state's lawyers told him to use that word, to insinuate that the only people that could get vaccinated in that group would be people that he's trying to pander to. And so it's legal. Technically speaking, this is not illegal. It should be grounds for removal from office. He should be removed. He should step down immediately. He should have stepped down long ago when he sold out on guns, but that's just my own libertarian opinion. But it's legal because he's simply saying if you identify, that's like saying, well, if you identify as female, then you can come here and get some surgical procedure. You can get a $10 coupon to Walmart or something. Well, I can go there and say, hey, I'm a female. They're not going to ask any questions. They're not paid enough to ask questions. That's the whole problem. So suing him won't work. Just to be clear, while it should be the case, while you should be able to sue, while this is clearly a violation of equal protection for a governor to engage in such talk, you're not going to be able to sue him successfully. I'm sorry. How about extremely tan? Well, yeah, I mean, have you seen the so-called indigenous people in the state of Vermont? They look like me. They're not Native Americans any more than I am or you are. They're the same fucking shit. The same people. We shouldn't even be fixated on such things. We're all Americans anyway. You're born in the continent, you're an American. Get over it. Didn't he hear that the vax has far more frequent... Oh, yeah, I can't read that one on YouTube. Sorry. Honk, honk. You can go to the thread if you want to. Just look up the Breitbart news status about Phil Scott. I identify as a vaccinated person. I don't need to get it because I identify as one who has it naturally. Forcing me to get one when I already identify as vaxxed is discrimination. Lawyer up. Yeah, it's interesting. Apparently, objective genetic and biological reality no longer is registered as reality by many people, so who fucking gives a shit? Hopefully, every white person in Vermont sues him, regardless if they're taking the vaccine or not. I'd imagine Vermont is majority white. Oh, yes. Yes, my dude. It is majority white. Oh, yes. Let me tell you, I believe it is the whitest state in the union, or at least the second or third. Sometimes we compete with Wyoming, Maine, and Alaska. Essentially, those four states are the whitest. And it's just like Vermont, to its credit, also competes for the top 3 positions for most educated. The other contenders being usually Minnesota and New Hampshire. Yeah, someone's having a problem out there, I guess. Minnesota and New Hampshire. Vermont's a really great state in many ways, but our government is a little bit on the screwy side. Let me tell you. Breitbart should probably have me in to talk about this because I actually know what I'm talking about. Most of these people are not even from Vermont. The way that's worded, it sounds like it's really open to everybody. Yes, see there's the weasel words. This dude gets it. You just have to identify as that, which we know for the gender insanity of the far left. You just have to say it and it makes it true. So if you want the vaccine, just identify as one of the groups. Easy. Yeah, see, that's the thing. Vermont is woke enough so that if I walk in and I say, hey, yeah, I identify as a person of color, you know, I've got a color. It might be, you know, not particularly dark, but it's there. I'm not like bone white or anything. They'll give you the vaccine. Not saying that I'm bothering to seek it because it's pointless. Why can't a white person just identify as a black person? Well, Rachel Dolezal knows that. It doesn't make me want to get vaccinated. Yeah, I mean, I don't even understand the point. It's just fucking pandering. What the fuck are some people thinking? See, Phil Scott is looking forward to a few years from now when he's up for re-election, and he's thinking about that. And that's really what this is about. And keep in mind, his transparent, obvious pandering, the obvious grifting and opportunism going on here, do you think that that's absent from national politics with politicians in the U.S. Congress, other governors, presidential races? A lot of people will put their heads in the sand and they won't understand that. Anyway, I'm going to get through this. We've talked about Phil Scott enough. He doesn't even deserve the time. He doesn't even deserve to be spoken of. He's a lesser Vermonter. It's funny because I think I'm more well-known than the fucking governor of my own state. The most well-known Vermonter is Bernie Sanders by a long sea mile. He's not even initially from Vermont. He's from Brooklyn. The funny thing is, I was born in New Hampshire, actually. But from like day 3 of my life or day 2 or something, I've been predominantly in Vermont. He had to wait, what, 20 years or something? Friggin' poser. But yeah, we've got all sorts of things that we got to cover today. We've also got to talk about the Capitol barricade attack. And this is a funny one. Well, it's not really funny because several people are dead, including the attacker. I think at last check, and somebody maybe can fact check this for me, there are 2 deaths. One of those is the attacker himself, correct? Noah Green, if I remember correctly, the name? I think so. And the other one was one of the officers he rammed, if I remember correctly. And then the other one didn't die, is just injured, I think. People can fact check me live. Yes? Okay. All right. People have confirmed that. And so that's not, great. And of course, the dude was nuts. But have you seen all of the MSM propaganda on the topic? I made a video earlier about this. If you look at, I hate to laugh because, it's not happy. It's a tragedy. But have you looked at the news reporting on this friggin' case? The transparent and obvious propaganda, it's so in your face. It's so brazen at this point that really anyone with a basic knowledge of civics and like psyops and stuff will pick these articles apart and be astonished. It's like, imagine that you're, living in 1984 and you're one of the handful of people that actually understands you're being lied to all day. You're in Brave New World and you're one of the few people that's not pilled up to the eyeballs. It's almost a little bit scary, to tell the truth, because the articles that you see about the Capitol attack are so obviously propagandistic by their structure, by omissions, by obfuscation, as I explained. Those are the 3 big ones. I'll get into a little bit of that for anyone that didn't see that video earlier. It's so brazen. And the fact that so many people aren't even aware that the propaganda is there is, honestly, it's a little bit frightening. It goes beyond my comfort zone, certainly, because I was raised, in the 90s and stuff, post-Soviet times. Things are generally good. You get Chia Pets and Ace of Base and stuff. And people thought, we're in a new era. Things will be better now. They'll be more calm. They'll be more relaxed. Oh boy, I think they're worse. We should just go back to the Cold War, like it's the 1960s again or something. Honestly, I think people were more relaxed then. At least they started using all sorts of drugs because they thought they were going to die every single day. Yeah, the Capitol attacker, for those that aren't aware, was a member of the Nation of Islam. His name is Noah Green. He was an actual member of the Nation of Islam. Anti-white bigot. I think that they're combing through his history trying to find something anti-Semitic so they can report on it more. He didn't use a gun, so they can't really use the guns are bad argument. He was non-Christian, so they can't say like Christian supremacy, the Protestant movement encouraged him to kill people or whatever. They can't say that. He's not a Deus Vultur or something like that. He wasn't white, he's black, so they can't say it was white supremacy. And so it's become a big problem because initially, and I've got a video lined up for tomorrow about Chinese propaganda on this topic. You won't fucking believe some of the weird stuff that's going on right now is truly bizarre. In fact, I think I'll open up that file in a moment and I'll give you a preview of it because it's so strange. But the propaganda is sheer. What's happened is that they initially, when the attack occurred, they assumed it was a Trump fan. Oh my God, the Capitol was attacked. Well, it was attacked before. It was attacked by Trump fans. A Trump fan rammed into the barrier and killed a cop. Oh my God, and brandished a knife and went crazy. It's white supremacy. It's far-right extremism. It's Trump-related. Within a couple of hours, we realized he wasn't white. He's certainly not a Trump fan or a Christian or right-wing or anything approaching that. He's a member of a group, the only group, as far as I know, that the SPLC deems a hate group that isn't white supremacy or Christian identity, which is Nation of Islam. They're really out there. And they do that, by the way, because of anti-Semitism. They don't mind all of the we hate white people stuff. It's just about Israel and anti-Semitism. And so it became a problem because nothing lined up. The traditional sort of motif that's created by left-wing media, by the MSM, by the Democratic Party as well, it's not a shade of that, which is guns bad, white people bad, Christianity or paganism bad, or in some cases atheism, by the way. It's really, really funny to lump them in together. All of these things, they didn't apply to the situation. The new Capitol attack was a black Islamic racial supremacist. And so what have they done? They've deemed him to be mentally ill. Now, the funny thing is, I analyzed this earlier. Look at the CNN front page article. I don't know if it's still their front page article now. You had to go through 5 paragraphs, total 5 paragraphs, which, trust me, only 1% of the readers did, before you got to the part about him joining Nation of Islam. But you heard about the fact that he was speculatively mentally ill because he was saying weird things that could also be attributed to religious zeal. And you definitely heard about the fact that there was an attack, but you didn't hear about the fact that he was a racial supremacist or an Islamist for 5 paragraphs. This is what I call a lie by omission. Further, you had obfuscation. This is them putting in speculation about his mental state that has nothing to do with an objective judgment. We don't know if he had any mental illness. We don't know that he was diagnosed with anything. We do know he was in Nation of Islam, which is a literal hate group, even according to the left woke standard. I would think that that should be in the first paragraph. Nation of Islam member rams DC barricade, kills cop, gets shot waving knife around. That would have been a better first paragraph in that general sense. Instead, you have to wait till paragraph 5. Yeah, so now he's, it's exactly a bizarre world. Now he's a victim. He was mentally ill. He was just driven crazy. The Trump era made him crazy because he experienced hate, he was bullied and so forth. So it's kind of justified that he attacked the DC barrier. Can you imagine if this was some dude in a MAGA hat who did this? Right now it'd be front page news worldwide, number 1. And number 2, they'd be screeching about how whatever views that person had, it was a collective problem that cast guilt like a dark cloud over everyone else in the United States. That's what they would do. So yeah, it was very funny. I imagine it was a Patriot Prayer member or something that went crazy. God was speaking to him and said, "Hey, you got to ram the barrier, kill a cop." Well, that's all you would hear about probably for the next week. We're still hearing about the Capitol riots from months ago. Even now, they are completely irrelevant at this point. By the way, it's funny because they said that the barriers were going to come down around the Capitol around March. Well, it's the 3rd of April. They still seem to be there. That's very interesting now, isn't it? I have a feeling they're going to be there for a very, very long time to come. Rather unfortunate. Also, we have to cover some Dutch news. The American viewers here probably won't care about that, but apparently, here's the long story short. and I'll be live fact-checked maybe by my wife if I get anything wrong, because, of course, I don't speak fluent Dutch. My understanding is reasonable, but, not perfect. Mark Rutte is having some problems. Again, as I analyzed before, he's kind of a polarizing figure within Dutch politics anyway. Most people seem to either they really like him or they friggin' hate him. But he's having problems forming a coalition because one of his negotiators, I guess, literally, she took a COVID test. And the results came back and it's like, oh my God, you've got COVID, but it was in the middle of a meeting. And so she left, but she left behind her papers. And one of them that was visible talked about the leader of the Christian Democrats, of the Christian Union, I believe, about this individual would be forming potentially a coalition with Rutte's party, and basically denigrating the individual and saying, well, we can look for a different post for this individual. Well, we'll give them a lesser kickback. And it started a big scandal, and now that party, and I believe D66, and some others that potentially would be forming a coalition with VDD, which is his particular party, Rutte's party, which is marginally conservative by Dutch standards, which means basically just shy of socialism by US standards. They're having problems forming a coalition, and now there are some rumblings that maybe he's not going to continue on in his leadership role. And I'm thinking to myself about, like Geert Wilders and some of these others must be constantly chuckling about this, reading the news. Like, I'm sure that there are some Twitter alerts involved in this, because the government has become non-functioning. Essentially, you've got a caretaker government. Rutte is in the position of prime minister, but he's almost defanged at the moment. He had a no confidence vote that was put up. He survived that. He managed to keep that post. But now his own party might say, hey, this isn't going to work. Someone else is going to have to lead things. I find it fascinating. And again, I try not to weigh in on Dutch politics too much. I mean, this is major news, so I'll mention it here on the live stream. And I do have a video planned for it, just in brief, tomorrow. In general, I try not to talk too much about Dutch politics because I'm not Dutch. I'm a guest in the country. I can't vote or run for office or anything. While I sort of have skin in the game in the sense of residing here in Amsterdam at the moment, I don't feel that it's proper for people that are from other countries until they've become full citizens to really weigh in too much on the political situation. Like, if someone comes to the United States, this might be an unpopular opinion, I'm sure it would be among leftists. If someone comes to the US, they're trying to be a citizen, but they're, they're temporary resident, migrant, whatever. Weighing in on politics, of course, they have the right to do that, but they don't have quite as much skin in the game. Like, they can't be drafted if there's a war or anything like that. They can't run for office, and so it's a little bit different. I have a feeling that I'm one of the few people in a residential status of that kind that actually thinks that way. A lot of people. It's funny because my entire living revolves around giving my opinion, and I'm a libertarian. Also, and this is something that has nothing to do with politics directly, I've got a request for people out there, and you can DM me on Twitter, potentially, if you can do this. I would like to get an instrumental version of a song called No Irish Need Apply, because I'm thinking the backdrop to this song is back, when the Irish were coming to the United States. They were discriminated against by mostly Protestant individuals, Anglo-Saxons, denied jobs, denied housing, and so forth. And it was legal, by the way, at the time. They were discriminated against. Back then, they had what they called the hypothesis of Iberians, and they thought that the Irish were actually an African race that had sort of hopped from coastal Africa through coastal Spain and France up into Ireland. And so they didn't consider them white, number one. They were heavily discriminated against. They were Catholics as opposed to Protestants, and they faced all sorts of problems. I'm thinking about transmogrifying it into the modern generation and reviving the song for maybe No Whites Need Apply, because it seems like the same thing now is true of anyone who happens to have light-colored skin without having the Hispanic background, which is we are discriminated against. As we see with Phil Scott, we are explicitly precluded from protections and from services, even from our own state governments, and it seems that nothing is done about that. I'm not even an identitarian or a ethnonat or anything like that, and even I can see yes, there is discrimination against people who happen to be of white origin. So if somebody can do that, you can potentially DM me on Twitter if you wanted to do that. Be interesting. The best way to babble is well anyway. Joe Biden. Yeah, he's having some real problems. I love it when old white dudes pretend to be woke. Again, Phil Scott, Joe Biden, Pete Buttigieg. Well, he's not old, but you know he's not even straight either. So I guess I can't use him as an example. What about Elizabeth Warren though? She's the whitest person in the United States. Fuck. Remember have you read her wiki article, by the way? This is computer trying to restart for updates. I don't want to update Microsoft. Microsoft can kiss my ass. Elizabeth Warren, if you look at her Wikipedia article, look at how sanitized and, pardon the pun, whitewashed it is as far as the controversy over her and her ethnic background. Number one, again, lie by structure. It's right at the end, of course. Number two, it barely mentions the fact that she lied through her teeth about her own ethnicity. Oh man, how funny that is. Sticks, do you listen to Rush? If so, what's your favorite album? I like Rush. It's funny, and yeah, I don't have a favorite album, but let me say this. This is also technically about wokeness, actually. Have you looked at like the Vox and Salon users, like lists of musicians and stuff like that? Like, here's our top 100 rock list. Here's our bottom 100. It's funny because like Rush and Queen and some of the like almost in Queen's case, this is almost ironic, like the macho rock thing that talks about working class people or something like that, or is really empowering, especially to male individuals. It's funny how it's always on the bottom of the list now, isn't it? Come on, Rush sucks bigly. No, they don't. Tom Sawyer's a great song. Limelight's a great song. Christ Sticks, migrate to Linux. I would recommend Mint. Yeah, maybe. Spencer gave me $5 and admonished me not to spend it on candy. I actually never eat candy. I almost never eat sugary items at all. I'm not a fan of them. Soy playlists. Yeah, there's a lot of those. You should go to the hipster rock section of YouTube. These days, YouTube even takes down playlists. Like, you don't even have to upload a video anymore. You can get a strike just for having a playlist that's inappropriate. You collated stuff that Susan Wojcicki doesn't like. It's very strange. Nameless Wander apparently sent me $2 for a question. Yes, well, I mean, if I'm ranting, it's hard to see it, though. And if I try to go back up, I'm sure that it's out of the way, unfortunately, by now. Legacy media brainwashing causes mental illness in the first place. Yeah, about mental illness, most people that are labeled mentally ill aren't. Like, I was labeled mentally ill as a kid. Fuck, I'm doing just fine. We are a Bible-believing, non-religious family who enjoys your videos very much. Would you please explain the Bitcoin? Perhaps its pros and cons also for us. Thank you, Teresa and David. Yeah, it's all pros. Bitcoin is fast rising. It's a stable potential currency. But you should see it not as something you'd use for regular transactions. Bitcoin should be seen more as like gold bullion or something. That is, that because the value is much higher, its purpose is more a reservoir of wealth. It's under heavy attack, like Library, the parent company of Odyssey, at the moment is being sued by the SEC over securities usage. They're trying to redefine cryptocurrency as securities. It's funny because it's the only thing in the world that is an asset, like a tangible asset, a currency, and a security at the same time. It's very paradoxical. It makes absolutely no sense. However, in the long term, now that Tesla and PayPal and some of these companies have adopted crypto, at least to some extent, I don't think it's going anywhere. I think it's got nowhere to go but up, especially with Bitcoin, because keep in mind, there's a declining rate of return to mining it, which means that tends to drive the value up. And it's infinitely divisible or nearly so. So if you have a Bitcoin and the total value is essentially tacking another zero onto the fraction of a Bitcoin for the same value, you've gained an order of magnitude of money, potentially. Keep in mind, though, taxes apply. If you sell it or trade it or mine it, you got to answer to Uncle Sam. And that's the only thing holding it back from, in my opinion, being at a six-figure level. And that would tend to drag other cryptos up because, remember, they're interchangeable with Bitcoin. Even the shit coins, as long as it's a tradable cryptocurrency, it potentially generates value unless it's completely abolished. I know you're private, but London needs you to visit. We might all be fucked in the West, but perhaps less fucked while the Dementor is in power. Yeah, you've got the British government's way more problematic. Anyway, I hate cities. Like, we're on the edge of Amsterdam, and even that is, a little bit on the urban side for my liking in many ways. Although it's funny here, Amsterdam's like a class unto itself when it comes to cities, because, one block like this one will be kind of urban. But if you go a block to the north, all of a sudden it's almost like small town style. It's like, little single family homes. They're connected together. It's like a duplex style thing. But, yards and stuff like that. You go another block, you've got a skyscraper. You go a couple blocks to the east, there's a farm or something. It's very, very strange, actually, how Amsterdam's metro area is laid out. I like it, kind of. There's a mashup of old and new, of industrial and almost semi-rural. And it's sort of my thing, my aesthetic, because you can sort of pick and choose anything you want. I introduced my mom to your channel. Now you're her favorite and first watch of the day. Clank On by Chad Harris. Well, thank you. And hello to your mother as well. She'll be an intelligent mother watching this channel. Now you just need a wall of commemorative spoons. You must commemorate your victory. Maple Tree of Knowledge. A couple of years ago, I decided to buy your book, All the Reasons We Need Gun Control in America. I was excited to read it. I confess myself trolled. Yes. For those not aware, several years ago, I made a joke book called All the Reasons We Need Gun Control in America. And it's, I think, 300 pages long or something, but it's blank. The pages are blank because there are no reasons we need gun control. And I would have made it a little bit more refined. I can't remember. Somebody did the cover art and stuff like that. I think it's listed on the book, and it was funny. Sold for $17.76, of course. I was banned from a gay website for talking about how today's gays are monolithic and bigoted by T. Ryan. Yeah. I've heard this brought up actually by other people who are gay or bi, which is that they live their life, they want equal rights and stuff, want to be able to marry or whatever, but they're not happy with the fact that it's turned into a weird identity sort of movement. And you've got people leading this so-called movement that are making a lot of money potentially off of it. I would say the same about whiteness. I happen to be white. I'm not guilty for being white. I'm perfectly fine and happy being white. I don't think white should be put down upon. I'm a white straight male, and that's perfectly great. And anyone that has a problem with me, they can fuck themselves. That being said, when someone self-appoints themselves the savior of the white race, well, I've got a way, whites will make it, and inevitably it's bullshit, by the way, and doesn't include have a kid, improve your life or something. It involves whining usually. Well, you don't speak for me. I'm not part of your fucking movement or your identity. I happen to be an individual. I'm never going to apologize for my ancestors or for this color of my skin or any stupid shit like that. But I don't need somebody else to lobby for me. I don't need anyone else to speak for me. I can do that perfectly fine myself, much more ably than these morons can. I'm not a commie. It's funny because there are some identitarians that are commies. Stephen 13, you missed mine. Yes, I'm sorry. I can't read all of the super chats because I'm also ranting. So my apologies. But I read that one. For what it's worth. You missed mine. I would go up, but the problem is even with slow chat on, if you get like 2,000 people watching, eventually YouTube disappears the older chats that have actually gone through. About $500 to register for a handgun in Maryland. Yeah, well, another reason not to live in Maryland. And it's also, it's blatantly unconstitutional, but the problem is that it's hard to get courts to take up such cases. The biggest problem is it's difficult to get the Supreme Courts of the various states, district courts, and so forth to actually make a decision because they tend to be reluctant by design to do so. They only want to make a decision if they're not supposed to talk about public opinion. But it's like with SCOTUS. Remember with the gay marriage debate? For years and years, it was obvious, gay marriage, insofar as a state marriage contract occurs, not a religious marriage, but just the contract for property purposes. Clearly, people are being discriminated against because they're not allowed to engage in that activity simply because they're gay. And it was obvious. And the writing was on the wall. What did SCOTUS do? It waited like 5 years when, it was obvious the writing was on the wall. It waited for more and more states to legalize gay marriage in order to provide a backdrop where it wouldn't cause problems once they made their decision. Until then, they kicked the can down the road. Several times they refused to hear the case. Should it be allowed? Technically, no. Pragmatically, unfortunately, what's the alternative? Causing chaos, potentially. Tony Soprano, Styx, what's your take on the Matt Gaetz scandal? And I'm probably mispronouncing his name. I think he's innocent. I think it is an extortion campaign. And I find it very, very funny that the MSM reporting on that unironically and unquestioningly are the same people that did not report on Hunter Biden, despite the fact that we know he actually did weird shit. Meghan Marvel, yes, I'm gay, and yet I hate the LGBT cretinism. Every one of us needs to speak up, or the populace will believe we're all like crazed activists. Yeah, I mean, that's the same with whiteness, too. I get flack sometimes from, people that think that I should be like, they think I should shave my head and have a swastika tattoo or something like that. Like, if I make, the 5th video this week about Jews or something, like, it's going to magically change the world for the better, or some stupid shit like that. Steven, plays COD Cold War. The campaign involves Reagan ordering you to kill commies. The takedowns are extremely violent, like Mortal Kombat. Well, that sounds good. Right now I'm playing Napoleon Total War. Unmodded at the moment. I'm still doing vanilla. I'll mod it with NPT3 later. And actually, me and Liz have played together multiple times on single player with and without NPCs, the CPU characters. It's a fun game. It's definitely involved, though. I got Attila. I don't like that as much. I don't know whether I'll bother playing that one. People said it was better, but I don't know. The design of the actual use of your troops in the context of battle, I think I like Napoleon Total War better. And also the crack of black powder. Isn't that like the most satisfying fucking sound ever? It's way better than anything that you get in the medieval era. That particular sound is highly aesthetic. It's like Civil War battles are great. 100,000 people die, but it's candy to the ears. Yeah. I'm doing a charity stream for 24 hours on the 17th for suicide prevention. I'd like to invite you for a half hour. How can I contact you? Well, J. Edgar, you can always send me a DM on Twitter. That's the easiest way to contact me and the only thing Twitter is good for. Yeah, that sounds like a cool live stream. Keep in mind, I'm in Amsterdam time, so if you're like Eastern Coast, US, depending on the time you're at, it could be like 5 a.m. my time, and I can't do that. Once like 2 o'clock roughly rolls around my time, it's difficult for me to do anything. Like even what I'm doing right now with this live stream is pushing it. My state just passed constitutional carry. Oh, an Iowan. Yes, that'll be a video for tomorrow, actually. Wagon wheel. And it's good. We need nationwide constitutional carry. We need nationwide stand your ground and castle doctrine. We need the recension of all existing gun control. Yes, you should be able to have machine guns. Yes, you should be able to import weapons. You should be able to mill your own weapons. You should be able to do whatever you want. Second Amendment should be basically unfettered for any weapon that an individual can reasonably utilize in a safe manner. Now, this takes it away from like bazookas and grenades and shit like that. Of course, explosives in that sense form potentially an industrial purpose too, mining and so forth. Not quite the same. As far as small arms go, it should be unrestricted. I find it funny. You can get a Gatling gun that'll fire, 6 rounds a second, 50 cal, whatever. You can get a Gatling gun, perfectly legal. But a gun that has the same firing rate that is a machine gun somehow is illegal. I find that a little bit strange. They do the same fucking shit, and the Gatling gun's way cooler anyway, and you get some exercise doing it. I want a Gatling gun. You can get a 9mm Gatling gun, by the way. It's this little thing. You can look it up on YouTube. It's like, I guess, about this big. It looks like a little mini Gatling gun with little rubber wheels and everything. The problem is the capacity is fairly low. is not really that useful. It's the sort of thing that a gun enthusiast would have in their living room as a talking piece. I'm talking about those old, really great brass Gatling guns, the really shiny ones that weigh like 100 pounds, and you can put a belt on that shit and crank it for fucking 30 minutes. I want one of those. You don't need a Gatling gun to hunt with. Well, what if you want to cook the food by shooting it enough? Guns are great. People who hate guns, obviously they've never actually fired one. If they had ever gone target shooting, even with like a little 22 caliber pistol or something, even with a little revolver, even with a BB gun, arguably, it's so fun. It's relaxing. It's great. Guns are amazing. You can buy a Gatling crank for your AR-15. Yes, I know. In the state of Vermont, though, we've got an unconstitutional ordinance at the moment till SCOTUS eventually weighs in that relegates magazines to 10 rounds or less for rifles. It's funny because if you take off the rifle part of it that is classified by the ATF as what makes it a rifle, you can have a 15-round magazine. So for a pistol, it's perfectly fine. It's funny because if you had an AR-15, like the rifle variant, and you had an AR pistol, and you had a 15-round magazine, it would be legal to have it in the pistol, but it would be illegal to put it in the rifle one. This is how strange Vermont gun laws have become, by the way, under Phil Scott, which we spoke of earlier, the idiot of the state. Apparently, no charges on Chauvin has to prove motive, even the second-degree felony murder. Making Floyd's arrest an assault to get that on Chauvin. Yes, I know, you don't have to prove motive. Manslaughter, you don't need motive to kill someone wrongfully. That's actually consistent with the law. Perfectly consistent. But the thing is, I mean, he's obviously, there was no malice involved, so he's not going to get murdered too. There was no gross negligence, really. When you think about it, I mean, come on, the dude followed protocol. He did what he was told to do. Why are you blaming him? Blame the chief of police or the commissioner or whoever made up that rule. Blame the state government. Blame the city officials. Wrathchild78 giving me 500 SEK. And is that South Korean currency, I think? I'm not 100% sure. Because you've earned it. Simple as that. I know you're not British because you put that on the end. You should say simple as. By the way, I can, this cat's talking over there. I can barely see around my filter here. I have to aim that in the right direction to block out some of the fan noise because I'm using the Alienware. It's like I have two jet engines in the back of the computer. It sounds like a drone or something, like it should be able to fly through the air. Yeah. Kyle Kalinske replied to my comment by advertising in his administrator's WhatsApp with the chance of winning crypto. Socialist is practicing corrupt corporate capitalism. Yeah, Kalinske's like that. Most leftists are. And keep in mind, he's one of the more cerebral ones. I think Jimmy Dore actually is the only one. Well, him and Bill Maher, to an extent, sometimes. Those are the leftists that, you know, kind of have a little intelligence. Would you do an interview with Scott Adams? I mean, if you mean me interviewing him, maybe. If you mean him interviewing me, yeah. If he ever asked me to, you know, come aboard and talk to him or something, I would. I like the dude. Dilbert's a hilarious cartoon. I always thought it was funny that, and this, I remember talking about this in the context of Meatloaf back when he was doing political commentary there briefly. It's funny because people will say, like, Greta Thunberg, who's an 18-year-old with no real job, she's qualified to talk about politics, but Scott Adams is precluded from doing so because he's just a cartoonist. Or me, because, you know, I'm just a YouTuber. At this point, I'm more of a bit shooter. Q Fragger, all the best sticks. Watch you every day. Sleazy P tonight at 10. Yes, subscribe to Sleazy P Martini. He is the manager for Gwar, the epic rock band. You might know them for such hits as, well, fuck yourself, basically. You may know them from their crack usage. It is quite prolific. You should subscribe to him. He does live streams every week now. And they're also on BitChute. He's got a channel there as well. He chain smokes, but he never inhales. He's sort of like the Bill Clinton of tobacco smoking. Greatness 81. The latest attacks in D.C. were committed by black folks. Narrative busters? It looks like Biden has his excuse to keep the National Guard on. Yeah, that's what they'll default to. Well, Joe Biden's still under attack. We've got to keep the barricades up forever. You watch. They'll keep those fences and those troops there for the rest of his short administration until Kamala takes over. And they'll probably keep them there anyway. And it'll form a precedent. And then pretty soon the people won't be able to see the People's House anymore. They'll suspend touring of the Capitol and the White House and stuff, citing security issues. And it'll be just like after 9/11 when we lost a huge amount of liberty because we all got afraid and we gave the government more power and started freaking out about terrorists that by and large were absent or overseas, that we ourselves were antagonizing by invading other countries anyway in the first place. And it'll be horseshit. And then people like me will be seen as sages belatedly, like 10 years from now for pointing it out, but will be ignored anyway, because by then it'll be normalized. It's formulaic. It's happened before. It's just like, and I think Razorfist pointed this out. Did you know that passports, like the kind that you get to fly overseas, initially were a temporary measure? Before the passports didn't exist until the World Wars period. Before that, it was just, you get on a plane, you fly wherever you want. They were incepted to try to stop spies and provocateurs. But now they've become permanent. Nobody complains about them anymore. Rich G. One day, in the hopefully not too distant future, Kim Jong-un is going to hear a loud popping sound, the sound of his head coming out of his own ass. I don't have a problem with him. He keeps busy in his own little territory, his hermit kingdom. No, North Korea never screwed me over. The U.S. government does. North Koreans aren't the ones that rob me of half of my wealth every year. Marussia Dark, did you ever get the books I sent to you last year? Yes, I actually did, but I haven't gotten a chance to read them because it was impossible to pack them with my things. But yes, I do remember your books, and I will definitely be reading them in the future. So just bear with me. Also, you got to understand I work constantly, so I can be a little bit scatterbrained sometimes. Nameless Wanderer, this is the third time I sent you a super chat just to ask, will you ever do a video on Discordianism? Truly feeling buyer's remorse now. My apologies. You can probably rescind the other two if you want to, by the way. I think you can do that. Yeah, I'd do one. Yeah, Discordianism would be a good subject. I've got 3 occult videos at the moment lined up, though, that I've got to do first before I do anything else. Now chat's jumping through. Oh, my God. Adherent of Lady Columbia, can you offer your view on why the right has better arguments but lack any form of organization? Also, is there chances to slowly regain liberty? I wouldn't say that the right necessarily has better arguments on certain issues. On some, yes. On some, no. I agree with the left on certain issues, like gay rights, certainly. Aspects of environmentalism, although not in general. Of course, I don't care about climate change and that bullshit. I care about pollution and reforestation efforts and so forth. Certain other social issues. I don't believe that women should be barefoot in the kitchen, as certain traditionalists seem to. But the right, by and large, its organizational problem is in its desire for individualism, or at least the libertarian side of what you would loosely call the right, which I would be part of. I'm an individualist. It's harder to organize. When you have people who have independent minds and aren't lemmings, it's difficult to organize them in a centralized way. I don't consider this to be a bad thing. I think that the disorganized methodology, certainly of memes, and I think I pointed this out back in like 2015 or something, was a virtue. This is why the right can meme and the left can't. The left is too organized, so naturally they're going to have like a wall of text if they have a political meme. Marussia, Greta is the literal definition of a poster child. Yeah, I feel actually kind of sorry for her because she's clearly being used by other people. If you think that she's the one that thought up her "how dare you" speech, yeah. DC and Colorado attacks, followers of the religion of peace. Yeah, it was mostly peaceful DC barrier ramming. Mostly peaceful. Only one person other than the perp died. Just one person. While those evil Trump fans killed like several people in the Capitol insurrection. Oh my God. The whataboutism is sheer at this point. Guar died with Dave. Guar's stuff is still pretty good. And Sleazy's still there. And, he's the most entertaining of all, I would argue, at this point. Can't even remember. I think he's got over like 10,000 subs on YouTube, actually. Several thousand on BitChute, I think. He's doing pretty well. Getting to that level. So, I mean, when you get to the point where you're almost at 500,000, sometimes it's easy to poo-poo that, but it's fucking hard to get to 10,000. Darun Albane. No need to read. Love your work. Keep that blood out of your caffeine stream. I agree. I caffeinate every single morning. I've gotten into the habit now of making like sort of a mock cappuccino thing. I heat up some milk and I use that instead of water, and I have like instant coffee. I find it troubles my stomach. It's less acidic, I think, because of the milk, actually. It's delicious. And then you can get your milk. Your morning glass of milk is also the caffeine, so you save time. It's more efficient. It's a no-brainer. Trippy Liquids, crack is literally based. I get the reference. Yeah, I never got to try crack or coke. Mostly psychedelics. Probably for the best. I'd be in an alley somewhere if I was still alive, if I had tried crack, probably. Adherent of Lady Columbia, how much longer do you perceive the wokeism lasting based on the previous lengths of moral panics, and what do you expect the next panic will be? Well, even some aspects of the left are going past the woke stuff now. They're scumbags. You've got the scumbag left, people like Vaush, and they don't do the id poll thing quite as much. They're still insane. They still have weird ideas, but they don't delve into the namby-pambying around about gender, the diversity and stuff like that. It's already happening. Basically, wokeism is already sort of a dying thing. It's a phase that we have to go through, a stupid one. Ken Kirihara, Sticks, what do we do about the CCP and their fondness for releasing paradigm-altering pathogens on the world? Why isn't other countries condemning them for their bioterrorism attack on the world? Well, they are. Now, the Australians aren't playing nice at this point. We don't need to do much about them. They're withdrawing from the world anyway. Did you see? I did a video on this today. It was an alt tech exclusive for those of you that aren't watching me on like BitChute or Odyssey or something. They're becoming more nationalistic. They're starting to boycott Western goods. Well, good, wonderful. They're solving the problem for us. I strongly agree with their decision. Tony Soprano, favorite brutal death metal band. See, I can't really answer that question because death metal is death metal is death metal. I don't know. I like most of them, to tell the truth. Necrophagist was pretty good. I don't know if they still do anything anymore. Dimmu Borgir. I don't know. That stuff's sort of stuck in the 2000s at this point. I got more into black metal with, various bands. Peste Noire. French black metal, by the way, very good. They had one album called Folk Fuck Folly. It's interesting. Stephen 13. I will be president one day, the 50th president of the United States. I can wait for my inauguration. I am a center libertarian. Well, if that's true, just remember you can give me an ambassadorial position. I can be ambassador to the Netherlands because, I'm sort of already here. Or ambassador to France, actually, because then I can eat snails. By the way, I have a bitch to talk about with the local Albert Heijn. They had snails available, like with butter and parsley and stuff. Really, really delicious, by the way. Escargot. They had these when they first did their expansion of their store, just the one that's like a block and a half away from here. And I had it a few times. I took a picture of it. I put ketchup on escargot, and people went nuts. It was good. It was kind of expensive, but it was legit tasty. I don't understand. It's funny because exotic foods never taste as exotic as they look or sound. It was good. Expensive, but good. Very buttery, very herby, a little bit of an earthy, marshy undertone, but I fucking loved it. And then, of course, they never stocked it again. So for months, I don't have escargot. You need to make me ambassador to France so that I can go and get fresh snails. Maybe I'll go and harvest them myself. I'll just go out into someone's garden and say, hey, I'll pay you $10. It'll be cheaper than the store. Elemendorius. Yes. Elemendorius, as usual. You already talked about Vermont and the vaccine, I assume. What will it take, do you think, for people to wake up to the racist BS like this going on? Oh, trust me, they're already awake. Oh, and it's glorious. The left has overstretched so far culturally that it's beginning to burn away all of any support that it had, like post-Trump, because people, some people did get tired of Trump's tweets or him being a blowhard or whatever. Virtually all of that leverage and high ground has been completely destroyed at this point. That's my consideration. Shane Gregory, would you consider yourself a realist in foreign policy? Do you think we are seeing the return of great power politics along with China's rise? Yes and yes. But I think China will inevitably fail because they've got the short end of the stick, because a lot of their wealth is tied up in selling things to their potential major adversary. That's not a great place to be. Justin Sider, what are your thoughts on Jordan Peterson? Have you heard his religious philosophical discussions? I like the dude. I don't think that I believe him or his daughter when they say that they eat nothing but steak, though. Just to be clear, I think they'd be dead by now if that were true. Source, I think I'm pronouncing it right. If we worked harder to bring other countries, people to our level of freedom, do you think it would raise the bar and help stabilize individual rights? Yes, and we were doing that. Up until the 90s. We were pushing liberty in other countries, but then we realized how lucrative Chinese trade was, and the US government got more and more corrupted, and we sort of gave up. Other than Donald Trump, the last president that we had that was semi-independent was first-term Reagan. By his second term, not even close. He was already demented he's like Joe Biden by then. Brian Bradley, first thing I do every morning before even getting out of bed is boot up your videos. Thanks for the hard work, the content, the erudite perspective. Well, thank you very much. I'm glad to be part of the morning. It's an early morning. King Kickass. Sticks, my only request is you go on an episode of Timcast. Oh, yeah, I'll respond to that real quick. I would love to go on Tim Pool's show. The problem is, of course, I'm in Europe at the moment, and he's over in the United States. I'd have to physically be there. I've already told him that I would gladly go on one of his episodes, but we'd have to coordinate it because, I mean, the last time I was in the U.S., it was only for a few weeks for business purposes. I didn't really have time to travel out of Vermont. If I go back and I have, a couple months or something, yeah, I would definitely go on Tim Pool's show. Absolutely, in a heartbeat. By the way, he was on Fox a few days ago as well. Marushia Dark again. I and some friends could help set up a Clankdom Discord for you and teach you how to use it. We need you there, especially with the new stage call feature. I don't like Discord. Honestly, I appreciate the offer. I'm just not a fan of it. Like the layout of the site, it's like Reddit. It's just not my thing. You say Reddit, I say 4chan. You say Discord, I say minding my own business, being antisocial in the corner, really. I'm not much for that sort of stuff. I'll take one more, and then don't send any more super chats because this is the last one I'll read. The Human Centipede. Fun future scenario. Trump runs and wins in 2024. It is now 2028. The rep candidate is DeSantis, and the Dem candidate is Newsom. Who do you think wins? DeSantis, easily. Okay, there's a couple more. Please don't send any more, though, however, because, I have to end sometime. Got to get a snack, sit there rubbing my hands with Ajax and bleach. Jack Onan, opinion on Terrence McKenna and DMT, pineal gland eating in the obscene right of Skull and Bones Society. I don't think people eat pineal glands. I edited a work by Dower from the early 1900s. And keep in mind, this is 30 years before fluoridation of water. That talked about the calcification of the pineal gland because of the pituitary gland, actually, and how it's completely normal. As far as DMT, I've never used it, but I use salvia and similar substances. Pretty mind-blowing. Alamandorius, I wish I could chat with you more directly and have a conversation about all this. Lol. I've observed politics since I was 4, and I've noticed a lot. If you can DM me on Twitter, potentially we could have a conversation, yeah. Adherent of Lady Columbia, doesn't your view on qualitative versus quantitative growth also conflict with the issue of immigration? Interestingly, global human birth rates are down. Yes, they are. I think that it is in technology, not brute manpower, that the future lies. We've seen in history this is the case. Like the elimination of slavery was prefaced in part in parts of the world on the Industrial Revolution. The hope is that as technology and industry gets more efficient, you need less brute manpower and you have less abuse of people. People can be more free. This isn't always, unfortunately, the case. But yeah, I'm going to end the stream. Don't tell me what to do, Tarl, says Nunya for $5. Well, I mean, I appreciate the money, so it's okay. But yeah, I'm going to go off now. It's been a bit over an hour. 2,000 people at peak. That's, again, several times what Joe Biden gets. So keeping that in mind, and this won't even be ratioed, so it's so great. We will now end the broadcast. Remember, tomorrow I will do a live chat Q&A, which means I will read all Super Chats, or at least try to. It's very difficult sometimes, but I will. One last comment by Harvey27. Thoughts on vaccine passports in the UK? I oppose them. They are a terrible idea. They will not save a single life, and they are draconian and tyrannical. That's about all. Peace out.